What do you think?
I see a missile.
A missile?
I see a missile. I see a torpedo with wings.
And it was one of those missiles that killed Lisa's husband, Teddy, leaving her with 3 young children and plenty of resentment.
And part of that anger stems from the fact that Teddy had already been involved in the basement bombing of the World Trade Center, hadn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, 9 years later, it happens 100 times worse.
Well, I saw the smoke. I knew there was no chance.
Did you? You knew that? You knew in your heart?
And I knew he'd go to the roof, because we'd always talked about that. When you're on the 105th floor of 107, it's much more logical to go up than go down.
Regrettably, Lisa and Teddy had an argument the very night before the terrorist attacks.
We made up. We made up next morning, and you know, I sent him to work with, "I love you, you're my soulmate." And
on that fateful day?
On that day, and I never heard from him since. No phone calls. I think he went when the planes went in.
Has any belonging or part of Teddy ever been found?
Nope.
Not a ring?
Not a ring.
No driver's license, nothing?
Nope.
Would it make it easier if there had been?
I don't know. Maybe now I could do it. Up until now, it's kind of been nice that it's been so esoteric that he just walked out my door and is gone. And I have a closet full of clothes. Otherwise, who knows if he ever existed? I mean, you kind of get to a point where you're thinking, was he really here?
It took Lisa 9 months to build up the courage and the nerve to go anywhere near ground zero.
My eyes were opened to a very different side of 9/11 than what I had experienced. I saw that our husbands and all the people killed that day were targeted for where they worked and for who they were, and that they, in fact, are the casualties of this war.
And with no fear.
Her visit to Ground Zero inspired a concert and this documentary, a tribute to the thousands of rescue workers who search for Teddy's remains and all the others with their bare hands.
No one really knows what they've done and what they've given up, and the fact that when our husbands and wives died, our trauma started then, but they were just going to begin theirs because they've been working so feverishly for 9 months to push it off, and push off that hurt, that pain, because they'd lost 37 of their own.
But now, a year later, one of the controversial issues surrounding September 11 is the slow distribution of money collected by dozens of charities for the families.
They probably collected $300 to $600 million. I don't know if that's, I know it's 600 million. I just don't know if that's between the Red Cross, United Way, and all the others, or who has what.
How much money is still sitting there doing nothing?
I don't know. I've heard it's all over the place. Multiple hundreds of millions, though.
And of course, I believe administration costs of these charities take up 1/3.
Right, they do. The 80s and the 90s were about physical health. The early 2000s are going to be about mental health. And it's things like this, and sharing and showing all your feelings and your emotions that will make you better.
And for Lisa and her 3 children, it's working. The healing is finally underway.
The other part that I think that just came so clear to me is that this is really a short life. I mean, maybe we have 80 years on this planet.
If you're lucky.
Right. So what are we going to do with them? Pout or try to get better from it and learn from it?
Yeah, so many other families will be grieving again on this anniversary, but there are countless other stories of miraculous escapes from the firestorm that destroyed one of the world's greatest landmarks. And you're about to hear from one of them, from a young Australian who worked at the World Trade Center.
I saw on three separate occasions, I saw ladies crying on the street, and it was...
What, today?
Yeah, just now, and it was kind of... I had to look away. It really brought me down, and there's a lot of pain around. And
Australian Adam Hope visiting New York's oldest church, St. Paul's, where tens of thousands of memorials have been laid for those who died in the terrorist attacks. And Hope was almost a statistic himself.
a rather morbid statistic that I read recently was the demographic with the most fatalities was men aged 37, and that was my age.
Adam reckons he's the luckiest Australian living in New York City because he knows just how close he came to being our country's 11th fatality.
totally surreal. I mean, 1 year later, I still see images on the television and the newspaper, and it is unbelievable. I was there. That was where I worked. God, look at that. It's still, I think it's still sinking in, which is a bizarre thing in itself. Would you like another cup of coffee?
After farewelling his wife, Karen, on the morning of September 11 last year, he headed for his office on the 73rd floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower.
The Port Authority, who I worked for, lost 75 employees. I believe it's 75. I think 30-odd were policemen who were there helping get people out of the building. And then people like I work with were for one reason or another, either slow to get out or helping other people or trapped in elevators, that kind of thing.
He had just returned from the canteen with his breakfast when Osama bin Laden's first suicide plane slammed into his building at 8:46.
It was really an enormous bang, and I thought it was a bomb straight away. And you don't know why, because what else, except for what else could make such a noise when we're 73 floors up from the ground? I didn't think of an aeroplane. The next thing I know, I'm quite sure I just dropped my coffee and salad. Literally don't have any recollection of holding it any longer. I checked my watch and ran like hell to the staircase.
He was sure he'd be able to fly down the stairs and get out of the building. The problem was, everyone else had the same idea.
And then it was a snail's pace of going down the stairs, 50-odd minutes coming down, and we had burnt people coming from further up and horrifically burned, unbelievable people with burns, and they were still walking, much like zombies, mind you, but, you know, just skin that looked like tissue paper that was just peeled off. They were, you know, one guy who was bald and black, and he was a white guy. He wasn't an African-American, and he was that badly burnt.
As those agonising minutes dragged by, Adam began passing the first firemen into the building coming up the stairs. They were some of the 343 firefighters who would die on the day.
They had so much equipment on. They had all their full firefighting gear on, an oxygen bottle on their back, a spare bottle on their shoulder, another hose on the other shoulder, an axe, these spear things. They all looked like soldiers going to do battle, which I guess they were.
Adam Hope ran from the North Tower not long before its collapse, realising the South Tower was already down.
That you do remember how lucky you were and how bad it could have been and how bad it was for so many other people. But I just keep thinking that I was very fortunate, like a lot of other people, so be happy and grateful for whatever reason and move on.
Adam Hope. And after the break, we'll look at how the people of the city have moved on from the terrible events of a year ago, rebuilding their lives in defiance of the terrorists who tried to break their spirit.
New Yorkers are probably the smartest, toughest people around, and they'll just continue to do what they have to do, and they'll get through anything. They'll get through this, and they'll get through whatever else comes.